know it.
Well, that's
It
just
just
conditioned
sounds
listening.
I don't know, yeah, but it's like, we have a thing when we look at people, we tend to be attracted to people with symmetrical features. There's some kind of pre-programmed disdain we have for people with faces or.
Which again can be a conditioned thing. Like part of it is biologically, the animalistic part of the brain is like, oh, good breeding, aspects. And so like there's a little bit that. Another part of it is that right now not right now, we've pretty much always lived in a world, but like we live in a world and in a society, again, I can only speak to the US, but we live in a society that celebrates one very type of attractiveness.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so
which
that is represented. No one measures up to. And the people who do somehow measure up to it because of, extreme like diet changes and surgery and what all other stuff, those are the ones that we laud and praise because we're like, oh hey cool, you fit this unreasonable standard that no one else in the world can fit. Awesome, you're our favorites.
There's a girl on Live Me, I can't remember her name, but she looks like Barbie.
Yep.
I mean, it seems like Barbie, and it's crazy because nobody looks like Barbie, but she does.
Yeah.
But,
That's what, who was it who said years ago? Was it, there was some famous, I can't for the life of me remember her name. It's like on the tip of my tongue. Not Farrah Fawcett.
Raquel Welch.
Not Michelle Welch. I'm gonna Google
Okay.
really quickly. Speaking of everything being a Google search away.
Yeah. Well, and we are actually hitting up on the time they asked us to be out
Ooh.
here, so I didn't think it was possible. And I'm still not done with things I
That's
want to
all
ask you, but I want to take advantage of the being here.
Cindy Crawford. That's what it is. Cindy Crawford, years ago, because everybody's like, oh my god, I want to look like Cindy Crawford, blah, blah, blah. Again, just speaking to the unreasonable standard. Cindy Crawford came out and she was like, do you see these things that they put about me in the media, these photos? I wish I looked like Cindy Crawford.
Yeah.
Because so that's really the point. Is like, right now we celebrate one very specific type of like attractiveness. Yeah. And if you don't fit into that, then you're not considered. But that's entirely a conditioned thing.
Right.
But yeah, going back to you wanted to talk about.
There's a bunch of stuff I want to talk about. But we should wrap up and get out of here because I don't want them to feel like we've abused.
I mean, they said 4:35, so I think we have a little bit of.
Okay.
Yeah, between 4:30 and 5. So.
Well, I mean, one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about is my community, about Folk Alliance. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of it? Have you been involved with it?
Not other than what you've mentioned.
It's a fantastic organization, and many people, yourself included, might say, "Well, I don't really play folk music," but the fact, I guess that Big Bill Brunsey said, "I reckon it's all folk music. I ain't heard sorts of singing any of it." And in our community, the Folk Alliance community, 25, 30 years ago, there was a schism of people who thought that a song couldn't be a folk song if you knew who wrote it.
Interesting. Okay.
But we've long since transcended that. And pretty much these days, within the Folk Alliance, we'll embrace just about anybody who'll wear folk around their neck. So we've got people who are definitely playing jazz and rock and rap and whatever. But it's a very warm and welcoming community. They generally have no problems with gender fluidity. I mean, it's pretty incredible, and it's a network of people that help each other out and care about each other. And there's a listener base, and I would like to see you meet the Folk Alliance.
I'd love that.
Maybe you could come to. There's a conference in Woodland Hills.
Okay.
And I think it's early October.
Okay.
And I don't know, they probably have formal showcase applications open. I would certainly showcase you in my room because I do showcases there. And I would like to introduce you around to people. And
that'd be awesome.
And that's the Far West region. There's 7 regions, and there's an international conference, which next year will be in Montreal. Montreal is a beautiful city. You'd meet a lot of cool people. I don't really think it's viable for Americans to tour Canada right now.
I don't think so either.
You know, I put out a call because I'm desperate to find a way to help my friends do it.
Sure.
But between the lack of governmental support, the exchange rate, the gas prices,
Yeah.
and the general low number of venues across the border, I don't know if I necessarily recommend that one. We talked about touring. What are your touring plans?
Currently none.
Okay.
Because I'm much more focused on getting into the studio.
Yeah.
So for the rest of this year especially, my focus is getting into the studio and recording this backlog of songs, really. And then, at the beginning of the year, I'm going to start looking at actually putting together a tour, and then probably do something, maybe start with like a college tour. I have a few friends who do, I think it's called NACA, where it's like the National Association of College
Activities.
Looking at doing something like that, maybe inquiring my own alma mater, seeing if they would have me, come back and perform as kind of like a kickoff thing.
Chicago area, or no? Do you have fans there?
I do. I have not been back there to perform since moving to Los Angeles.
Since 3 years.
And I did do a couple smaller shows in the Midwest over like the Christmas time.
Whereabouts in the Midwest?
Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah. I did a couple shows while I was visiting my adoptive Live Me parents. We put
nice.
together one public show and then like a house concert. That was actually really amazing, and by far 2 of the best performance experiences of my life.
Oh yeah. You'll like our community. That's exactly what we do. Those kind of things.
Cool.
So
and doing something like that where like it's a combination of like house shows and then like larger venues and things like that. So that's a beginning of next year, like kicking that off.
Yeah.
And then right now I'm really just focusing on getting together the material so that I have something to tour with.
Start to lay some groundwork though. So
sure.
That you people, I mean, clearly with 115,000 Live Me followers, there's a potential for coming out with a significant number of house concerts just through that.
Yeah.
If you could somehow sequence them geographically so you could route it,
Totally.
it would be great.
Yeah.
One of the real benefits of getting involved with the Folk Alliance is often you can find performers that you can do splits with.
Okay.
Or even just open up for them if you've got a free night.
Oh yeah. No, there's that. I have I've had a few people who have already reached out to me. They've already said, like, if you're ever in Ohio, I want to open for you. And I was like, okay, cool. So like doing things like that, and it's been much more the biggest reason that I haven't toured, the biggest reason that I haven't even done even so much as like an up the coast kind of deal is money.
Yeah.
I just haven't been able to afford it. Like I don't have the ability to really set much aside right now, but with being able to get into the studio now and hopefully generate something.
Well, one of the biggest problems is if you're not doing house shows, almost any kind of commercial venue expects you to have some kind of drop.
Yep.
We just had Chris Trapper in Syracuse from the Push Stars at a place called Funk and Waffles. He had like 10 people. And he's Chris Trapper from the Push Stars.
Yeah.
My town is especially resistant to coming out until they know you. But what does that mean? It means you're listening to Benny Mardones sing Into the Night from 30 years ago, and it's horrifying, we do have a folk series in town, and they've established some credibility with people, so they can bring people in. But they lean more towards the John Gorka, Christine Lavin, Cheryl Wheeler. I don't know if you know any of these names I'm saying. See, I have a community that's richly full of wonderful songwriters.
Okay.
One of the most difficult things with folk world is that it's very gray.
Interesting.
And I'm trying to ungray it as best I can.
Okay.
And one of the best ways to do that is to find performers like yourself that are not even 30 years old, that, have got great music, personality, that reach out and speak to an audience, because if you're a 14-year-old sitting at home, you can watch a 7-year-old guy on Live Me, because you don't have to be embarrassed saying, hey, to your friends, let's go to this place.
Yeah.
You can just swipe down to here and they go, wow, Bob Frankie, this cat's good.
Yeah.
You know, but you're not gonna take your friends and go, hey, let's go to the show for some 7-year-old guy, and they're gonna look at you like, why did you bring me here? Look at these people, they smell. You know, and the only way for me to really ungrade the audience is by ungrading the performance.
Sure.
You know,
It
so
follows.
I'm always looking for people that have the skills, that have the songs, that are, you know, because a guy like me, I'm 65, I can look at you and I can remember exactly what it was like to be you.
Of course.
Even though it was 35 years ago or 40 years ago or I don't even know how many, but, you know, it was the kind of thing where, because I can always go back to that place. In fact, lots of times I have trouble getting to 65 because I still feel like I'm 25, except I can't stand up anymore. You know? But it's, I don't know. I think there's real opportunities, and I know a lot of nice people. I'd like them to get to know you and see if there's a way that.
Oh yeah, I'd
we can
love to be
find
part
some
of that, and I'm
opportunities.
honored, you know, to be someone that you're reaching out to as far as that goes.
Well, I really love what you do. I think you're pretty special.
Thank you.
You know, so I hope the people who see this video and the other people will give you a listen and try to find a way to help you take it to the next step. And I know a lot of DJs, I know a lot of presenters, I know a lot of people.
Cool.
And if we can get you in front of them, then you never know what's going to happen. You know, have you heard a woman named Heather May?
I feel like I have actually. Yeah.
Heather's happening.
Okay.
Heather's really good. I met her at the song school that I teach at every year.
Okay.
That's a thing you should look into sometime too. But she was a student there, and she was good, but she really honed her craft, and she took vocal lessons from Ron Browning, the guy who's Alison Krauss's vocal coach, who she met at the song school, and she worked on the songs, and she does a thing. I haven't really gone through your material to see where you stand with this, but most of the people I know who write songs, they have a tendency, they write a verse part, they write a chorus part, they write a bridge part. They play the verse part twice, they play the chorus part, they play the verse part, they play the bridge, they play the chorus part.
Right.
But it's all kind of, you know, you could almost just loop it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And Heather's songs have a real emotional arc, a progression. And I think her arrangements are really outstanding. And that's something worth going through with your songs and seeing if there's a way to give a little extra.
Oh yeah. I've definitely been doing that with my more recent stuff because, I mean, when you're a younger musician, when you're a younger songwriter, you gravitate toward what you know, you gravitate toward the things that you listen to, and you know, I do a lot of things with the loop pedal, so like...
Oh yeah, I love that.
Some of my stuff that I do with the loop pedal is looping for the chorus to kind of like give you that feeling of like something coming together, but it might not necessarily, you know, so even though I may, from like a chord progression standpoint or like what is happening underneath the vocal line, that may get looped or that may get you know, like it may be like a returning melody that like comes back or like kind of like stays constant through the whole thing. If I do something like that, it's a very conscious choice for me because I have a bachelor's degree in music theory and composition.
I did not know that.
Yes, most people don't. I don't tend to talk about it, but I am a classically trained composer.
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale.
Oh, nice. My friend who I'm going to see tonight graduated from Oberlin.
Okay.
And she's got the same type of degree. She writes horn arrangements for people.
Yep.
She's brilliant.
Yeah. So if I'm doing something like that, it's very much for a particular compositional reason. And it's because I want there to feel this sense of grounding while something else is happening over top of it. And then some of the new stuff that I've been writing, I've pushed myself out of that because I'm like, okay, chord-wise, I want the same thing to happen for 2/3 of the song. In terms of like the verse and the chorus and the verse again, you know, like that.
Yeah.
But I will specifically push myself away from the second verse melody being the same as the first verse melody.
Sure.
So the chords are the same. The chords feel familiar. You feel like you've come back to the verse, but the melody atop it is different. So that again, you have that emotional arc, like
and
you were
then when
talking
you go
about.
back to the chorus, then you've got that.
Yeah, then it really
rush.
pulls back.
Because
Yep.
we are apes with cell phones, you know.
Oh, yeah.
We're like, we get so excited when.
Well, that's the whole thing, right? That's why they
familiar.
call it a hook a
Yeah.
lot of times, because that's what it does.
Yeah.
And then I'll pull something. What I've done recently is from an actual from actual chord progression standpoint, I will avoid. So let's say I'm playing, or I've written a song in. Well, a perfect example with my most recent song, "Make This Last." The verses are all. The song itself is in C major. Very simple, but most people are like, really? C major? Alright, fine. But all of the verses gravitate around F major, E minor, and D minor. There is no C major chord in any of those verses.
Oh.
You don't get the C major chord till the downbeat of the chorus.
And
then you're like, oh yeah, it feels like home. The average listener doesn't know why,
Right,
but it's just
right.
like, bam, and it's the first chord of the chorus. And the pre-chorus leads you from this F major 7 to the E minor 7 to the D minor 7, and the pre-chorus ends and just kind of hangs on the D minor 7 chord, and then you get the C major chord for the downbeat of that chorus, and you're just like, yeah, and you have this sense of completeness, which you may not know necessarily why, but the theory behind it,
It's the human.
it's our intent. You feel like you're home.
We talk at the song school a lot about prosody. I'd never heard of prosody until I got there. But just, in fact, one of our teachers, a guy from Berkeley named Pat Pattison, and he can be sort of a Nazi about it. I mean, he could go through the 10 greatest songs of all time, and he would change them and fix them, you know. And I think it's really important that the mood of the music matches what the words are saying.
Yep.
I mean, Paul Reiser always says the words are in the music and the music is in the words. But sometimes a dichotomy there is powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes a disconnect.
Absolutely.
It creates a tension, you know.
Yep.
But, it's very
I have a song on I have a song called "Would You Stay?" That's on my first album, and the ending chorus vocally, I end on the 1. You know, so if I told you I loved you tomorrow, would you say that you love me today? And I end right there, and that's cool. But the note that I play is ba-da. So you have this very close, very dissonant, unresolved feeling of. So if it was just the melody line alone, it would give you this sense of, would you say that you love me today? Of course you would. It gives you that feeling.
Yeah.
But the guitar is right there going, but would you?
asking the question.
But would you? You know, and so it's little things like that I like to do in my songwriting that I think, you know.
I've never really taken apart your songs. I usually deconstruct
I have.
them. Yeah, clearly. But I knew that I really liked them, but I didn't really know why. I just knew I liked them. You know what I mean? And I guess maybe that's the goal, really.
And I think we probably should start wrapping up. So I think I'll end with this. The coolest thing to me about something like music is that everything in existence is frequency. Everything is vibrating at a certain rate to create what we view as being a physical, tangible thing, or like the sound that we hear. Everything is frequency. And so what I try to do with my music, and what means the absolute most, is when someone comes up and they say,